We've decided routine is the enemy. Routine is boredom. Routine is drudgery. It's the grey, beige, haven't really lived kind of life. And I think that's nonsense. Well meaning, but nonsense. Because routine isn't where life gets dull. Routine is where life gets built.
The steady path, keep it moving slow. Every step you take is the way you grow. Take the steady path, let the rhythm guide. One step at a time to the other side.
Back in 1984, an old Japanese gentleman in California asked a teenager to wax his car. That film was The Karate Kid, directed by John Avildsen. Now, if you're of a certain age, I don't need to tell you how big that film was. And if you're not, go and watch it. It's amazing. Here's the setup. Small, scrawny kid, Daniel LaRusso, played by Ralph Macchio, a man who to this day does not appear to age, wants to learn karate, or karate. Mostly so the local thugs will stop using his head as a football. Fair enough. So he finds Mr. Miyagi, played by the wonderful Pat Morita. He's quiet, wise, about 4'9", supposedly a bit of a legend. And Daniel asks him for lessons. And Miyagi says, sure, wax my car, sand the floor, paint my fence, up, down, side, side, wax on, wax off. For days. And Daniel-san is, of course, absolutely furious. He signed up to become a karate champion, and instead he's been turned into unpaid labour. And then, one of the truly great moments in 80s cinema, Miyagi throws a punch at him. And Daniel, without even thinking, blocks it. With the exact same motion he's been using to wax that car for days. Without ever once realising what he's been practicing. And that right there is what we're talking about today. The astonishing, honestly almost embarrassing power of routine. Why the boring, repetitive, unglamorous, just get on with it bits of life are where nearly everything that matters is quietly being built, whether you notice it or not. Now, we've got a bit of a problem with routine, haven't we? Culturally, I mean. We've decided routine is the enemy. Routine is boredom. Routine is drudgery. It's the grey, beige, haven't really lived kind of life. Think about it. When we want to fire someone up, we tell them to shake things up. When we describe a brilliant holiday, we call it a break from routine. When we want to insult a job, we call it routine work. And I think that's nonsense. Well meaning, but nonsense. Because routine isn't where life gets dull. Routine is where life gets built. Nearly everything you actually care about, your health, your relationships, your skills, your money, your character, is being quietly built or quietly eroded every single day by the routines you keep or don't. We tend to assume the big dramatic moments are what shape us, the breakthrough, the bolt of inspiration, the lottery win. But honestly, they barely move the needle. What actually shapes your life is the small, unglamorous stuff you do on an ordinary Tuesday when nobody's watching and nothing feels like it's happening at all. And there's a song from 1982 I bet you can already hear in your head. Eye of the Tiger by Survivor, written for Rocky III. And underneath that famous riff and all the boxing, it's a song about routine. Dun, 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 dun. Rising up, back on the street. Did my time, took my chances. Went the distance, now I'm back on my feet. Just a man and his will to survive. Okay, I'm sorry, I couldn't help it. I had to sing that one. Rising up, going the distance, getting up to do the same hard work again, day after day. It's not really a song about a fight after all. It's a song about the dull, unglamorous discipline that makes winning the fight even possible. Which is exactly right, because the good life and the disappointing life, they're almost never the result of one big decision. They're the slow, quiet, added up answer to 10,000 tiny ones, the ones you barely noticed you were making. Will Durant, summing up Aristotle in a line so good we've spent a century wrongly crediting Aristotle himself, puts it like this: We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit. 2,500 years on, that's still about the truest sentence anyone has written about how people actually get better at things. Here's what I love about that Karate Kid scene. Daniel san couldn't see what was happening to him. He thought he was waxing a car. He was actually wiring in muscle memory. He thought he was being taken advantage of. He was actually being trained. And most of life's routines are exactly like that. They look like nothing, they feel like nothing. The morning you dragged yourself to the gym instead of staying in bed. What changed? Nothing. You look identical in the mirror. You're not, by Wednesday, an athlete. The evening you sat down and finally sorted out your money out instead of scrolling for an hour, what changed? Nothing. You are not, by Friday, a millionaire. But 6 months of that morning, a year of that evening, 5 years of either one, that's not nothing anymore. That's a different person. The trouble is, nobody claps for the boring bit. Nobody wants to watch the wax on, wax off. They want the tournament. But the tournament, and this is the whole thing Miyagi was teaching, was already won. Now, from a quiet dojo to somewhere a lot louder. An officer and a gentleman. Taylor Hackford, 1982. Richard Gere plays Zach Mayo, a rootless, selfish young man with a chip on his shoulder and no real ties to anyone. He signs up for Navy flight school to become a pilot, and waiting for him is Sergeant Foley, played by the brilliant Louis Gossett Jr., who won an Oscar for it and absolutely earned it. And don't you eyeball me, boy. Some great lines from that film. In every class, this is what he says, in every class, there's always one joker who thinks he's smarter than me. In this class, that happens to be you, mayonnaise. You may know by now that I like to quote movie lines. Now, Foley is no Mr. Miyagi. Miyagi whispers, Foley screams, 6 inches from your face. But here's the thing, he's teaching the exact same lesson. Because what actually transforms Zach Mayo isn't one heroic moment, it's 13 weeks of relentless grinding routine. The same drills, the same runs, the same obstacle course, boots polished, bunk squared away, the whole thing again tomorrow, and again the day after that. And Foley spends the film trying to break him, trying to get him to quit, to DOR, drop on request, and just walk away like the loner he's always been. And there's this moment, Mayo face down in the mud, Foley grinding him into the ground, telling him to quit, and Mayo finally cracks and screams the line that turns the whole film. I got nowhere else to go. I got nowhere else to go. That's my best Richard Gere impression. He's got nowhere else to go. So he stays and he does the routine again and again and again until the routine builds a man who simply did not exist at the start of the film. The selfish loner becomes, well, an officer and a gentleman. And when he walks back into that factory at the end in the white dress uniform to Joe Cocker's Up Where We Belong, and he picks up Deborah Winger in his arms and walks into the sunset, you understand that the routine did that. Not a speech, not a sudden burst of feelings. The routine. That's the bit we always miss. Routine isn't the cage, it's the forge. Mayo's 13 weeks weren't any different from the next man's. He was. Marcus Aurelius, and by now you'll be entirely unsurprised that I'm back to Marcus, was a great believer in the morning reminder. He opens one of the books of his meditations, bracing himself for the day ahead. And there's a line of his I keep coming back to. It goes like this. When you arise in the morning, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love. That's a routine. Not a fancy one. No app, no cold plunge, no warm lemon water at 5 in the morning. Just a daily reminder on waking of where he was and how lucky he was to be there. Because the Stoics understood something most of us don't. You can't think your way to a good character. You have to practice it. Daily. In small, deliberate, deeply unglamorous ways. Discipline isn't a feeling, it's a habit. And character is really just the residue of what you repeatedly do. Epictetus put it even more bluntly. First, say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. Decide who you want to become, build the routine that produces that person, and then, and here's the part that nobody enjoys, actually do the routine. Most days. Not every day, but most days. And there's a cracking modern book that proves this out in the real world. It's called The Gold Mine Effect by a Dane named Rasmus Ankerson. He traveled the planet visiting what he called the world's gold mines of talent, the tiny Kenyan village that turns out most of the world's great distant runners, the street corners in Brazil producing footballers, the sprinters in Jamaica. And he was hunting for the secret, the magic ingredient, the sort of secret sauce. And the secret, it turned out, was staggeringly boring. It wasn't some gift they were born with, it was hours, thousands and thousands of hours of the same repeated, deliberate practice, the famous 10,000 hours idea. The Kenyan kids ran the same hills every single day. The Brazilian kids played the same game on the same corner until it went dark. Nobody arrived a maestro. They practiced their way into it. Same as a concert pianist. Same as anyone at anything worth being good at. Which is exactly what the Stoics were saying 2,000 years ago. Just about virtue instead of football. You don't become patient by wishing you were patient. You become patient by doing patient things over and over and over again. I want to take you just briefly to a prison in Maine in the late 1940s, the Shawshank Redemption, Frank Darabont, 1994. And if you didn't know, it actually started life as a Stephen King novella tucked away in a 1982 collection called Different Seasons. Tim Robbins plays Andy Dufresne, Morgan Freeman plays Red, and I've come to think it might be just one of the most important films ever made about the slow, patient, almost invisible work of building a life worth having. Andy's innocent, convicted anyway. 2 life sentences. He arrives at Shawshank in 1947 and, very, very quietly, he gets to work. He runs the prison library, he does the guards' tax returns, he plays Mozart over the speakers once just because beauty matters even in there. And every single night after lights out, he does one small thing that nobody knows about. He chips away at the wall behind his poster with a rock hammer about the size of a teaspoon. And when the warden finally looks behind that poster in 1966, the tunnel goes all the way through. 19 years, one small scrape at a time, in the dark, nobody watching, no applause, until the morning he's simply suddenly gone. And there's a line earlier in the film that is honestly the whole episode in 7 words: get busy living or get busy dying. That's not a line about heroics, it's a line about the daily choice, about what you decide this morning to build or to quietly let rot. Which brings me to James Clear and Atomic Habits, a book I suspect a good few of you already have on a shelf somewhere. He opens with a piece of maths so simple and so quietly brutal, it changes how you see everything. If you get 1% better every day for a year, you don't end up 1% better. You end up about 37 times better. And if you get 1% worse every day, through tiny, invisible little compromises, you basically end up at 0. That's Andy Dufresne with a rock hammer. That's wax on, wax off. That's the actual maths hiding underneath almost every steady, well built life. And Clear has this other line that I think is the real heart of it. Every action you take is a vote for the type of person you wish to become. I love that. Every action's a vote. You're not trying to overhaul your entire life on a wet Monday in January. You're just casting one more small vote today for the person you're trying to become. And the people who end up living well are almost never the most brilliant or the most ambitious. They're the most consistent. They just kept showing up and let the routine do the rest. So, 3 routines worth building. Right, let's get practical. 3 things, doable. 3, not 10, because if I give you 10, you'll be doing precisely none of them by next Wednesday and feeling guilty about all of them. So, number 1, a morning anchor. The same first 10 minutes every day. Whatever it is, a walk, a stretch, a coffee with no phone in your hand, a quiet sit, a few pages of a book. Pick one, do it, not because it changes your life on day one, because by day 300, your morning belongs to you and not to the algorithm. 2. A weekly review, 20 minutes, Sunday evening, pen and paper if you can. 3 questions. What worked this week? What didn't? What does next week need? It's unglamorous and it takes not that much time, and almost nobody does it, which is exactly why the people who do quietly pull ahead of the people who don't. Number 3, a sundown routine. The last half an hour before you go to bed. Phone in the other room, yes, another room. Lights low, whatever moves you out of the noise of the day and into the rest. So a book, a chat, a walk to the front door and back, a few minutes with someone you love. Sleep is where most of your repair, your memory, and frankly, your good decisions actually get made. The sundown routine is what protects it. So anchor, review, sundown. 3 routines. Build one, then add the next, then add the third. And by the end of the year, you'll be quietly, invisibly, a different person. So, one question for the week, just the one, because 3 questions would be greedy. Ask yourself this: what's one small routine I could start this week that 6 months from now, future me would quietly thank me for? Not the heroic one, not the New Year's resolution gym membership you'll cancel in February one, just the small, doable, slightly boring one. The one that won't make any difference by Tuesday, but that by next Christmas will have shaped your whole year more than any big dramatic decision ever could. Because here's the secret nobody really tells you about a steady, considered, compounding life. It isn't built out of big moments. It's built out of small ones, repeated patiently by someone who decided to put the routine in and then most days actually did it. Wax on, wax off. Until one day the punch comes and you just block it. So slow down, build the routine, walk steadily. Thank you for listening to episode 6 of The Steady Path. Next time, we're doing something a bit more fun and a lot more important than it sounds. It's called Planning Your Adventure: Why Believing is Important. We're going to talk about why believing in the thing, really believing it's possible, is where every good adventure actually begins. And yes, there will be pirate treasure, a farmer sorcerer called Willow, a baby in a goblin castle, and a very patient man in black. The Goonies, Willow, Labyrinth, and the Princess Bride. Because it turns out, Never Say Die is surprisingly good financial planning. Until next time, slow down, think clearly, and keep walking your steady path. I'm Paul Cleworth. Thanks for listening.
Just keep moving on the track. Take the steady path, keep it moving slow. Every step you take is the way you grow. Take the steady